Welcome back everyone to episode 4 of a multi-episode series on building a tandem axle trailer from scratch. If you're new to my channel, my name is Mike and my content is about building and fabricating various items from scratch versus buying them and which way is better to go. The first series of the channel is the trailer you see behind in the background. If you like the content, please subscribe, like, comment, and ring the notifications bell. So to pick back up where I left off in last episode, the cross members are laid out roughly. They're not tack welded in. I had to do a little bit of alignment on the side rails, so I kind of go over what I did there off camera because it would have bored you to death. It was just a lot of back and forth measurements, a little bit of clamping and some wedging. So I'll show you basically what I was making sure was nice and straight. Again, the corner to corner was already square, but down this axis of the main longitudinals, there was a little bit of waviness, not a lot, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Realistically, probably would have been fine, but I'm kind of picky about things like that. So I took the time to check that for straightness. And the way I do that is just with a string line, because it'd be pretty hard to lay a level up there that long. So just similar to how you would make if you were going to tip up a wall for a house, and before you put trusses on, you want to make sure that wall is perfectly straight from front to back. You can use the string line. So you should be able to see the string line there that I've got laid out. It's right here. You'll notice there's a spacer block, because if you put the string just flat on the metal, then the string's simply going to follow that same curvature and you'd never tell if you were straight or not. So by putting this, so it's about 1/8 of an inch shim under each corner, that holds the string off of the channel by that amount. So then I've just got a gauge block the same thickness as this shim. So then I can just go along and check, and make sure that block just slips under or maybe touches this string. So let me carry you down here on each side. So we can pick any random place in here, put that shim up here. You can see it just touches the string. Same thing, you can pick any areas along here. Just touches the string. There it's a little bit tighter. And then the same thing. The way I accomplished that was some areas were bowed out a little bit, some areas were in, and so I just put some wood in the stake pockets of the trailer I'm working off of, just like this here, and then cut a wood wedge, or just a chunk of wood that was a little bit longer than what I needed, and kind of drove that down as an angle that would push that direction. Conversely, I had some blocks and some bracing on the other side, basically did the same thing. And then a couple areas it was actually bowed out on both sides, so those are those 2 pipe clamps down there that you can see to pull those in. So basically I've got that 1/8 inch reveal virtually all the way around. There's probably an area where it might be a 32nd of an inch or less, but that's going to work for what I'm doing. So I'm going to get switched over to, some of the wedges are actually in tight enough, the cross members are squeezed a little bit, so I might have to back off on those a little bit to get them set up on the jig we built on the last up, so it holds the cross members in the correct place. But instead of starting with each cross member and working down the end, there might be a little bit of pulling that happens, and then that could add up and it could cause it to be off the other end. So I'm going to do probably every other cross member. I'll tack it in place, check with my gauge along the way, and then come back and hit the others. And again, I'm not fully welding them in at this point. I'm just going to tack them in. So that's kind of boring for you to watch, so I will film it, but I'll probably put it on time lapse or speed it up when I edit it, so at least you don't have to sit through 20 minutes or longer of watching me tack weld cross members. So I'm going to get onto that spot right now. I've got to get the welder plugged in, and the welder lead on my welder is not super long, so unfortunately I can't just put the welder in one spot and do the whole trailer. I'll run the welder down one side. The lead is long enough to go to the other side, so I'll just roll the welder down to one side and then reach across and go back and forth. So we'll get going on that. to get you a close-up of how that jig works and a couple of tack welds. Hopefully that showed up okay. All right, that gets every third cross member tack. I didn't really expect anything to move, and it didn't. That gap on the string line stayed the same consistently, and so that'll pretty much stabilize it from anything moving much more. So now I'll be able to go back and tack in the rest of the cross members, and then before I weld up all the cross members, there's always a chance moving it around that it can still push it a little bit, so I'll probably lay the tongue pieces up there, and because they're on an angle, that'll triangulate between the front main cross member and the side rails, and that'll lock it into square pretty much permanently. So I'll probably do that, set that up and tack that down also, and then we'll just start welding all that stuff up. So I'll probably just leave the welder on this end and start this first cross member, these first two, and then might work my way backwards of what I did. All right, so that's all the cross members tacked in, except the two on the far end where the dovetail or beaver tail will be. The reason why I didn't tack those in, as one of them, when I cut the pie piece out, that'll allow the dovetail to fold down and be re-welded. One of those cross members intersects that joint, so that would interfere with being able to make that cut. So that one will stay free for now, and the other one, I haven't tacked it in because the jig that I built to set the height, that's for the dimensional lumber. The ones on the dovetail, if you recall from the first video, that will be expanded metal back there, of course much thinner. So those I'll have to space that cross member quite a bit higher, probably close to 1.25 inches higher than these others. So I'll deal with those a little bit later, but for now that gets the frame pretty much locked in. So I'm gonna pause it here probably. I'm gonna get a little bit messy here, do some cleanup, pick up all my scraps, take out all the blocking that was holding it square, and then I will bring it back and we'll talk about the tongue, which will be the next step. As you can see, I've got the main channels for the tongue just setting up here, and I'm gonna cut out some pieces out of the 6-inch. These are 5-inch. You got to cut some 6-inch pieces out that'll offset the coupler. I'll get these cut out and I'll actually show you a print from the CAD drawing that shows why I've got to have these there. And then we'll talk a little bit about layout of the tongue and how to make sure it's straight and square, and then the distance off of it also. So I'll get on my helmet here and we'll make these 4 or 3 plasma cuts. I've already cut with the cutoff wheel, cut through the side. Some of you may have noticed that I have on my welding helmet pretty much all the time. It's a helmet, of course an electronic one, that has settings for welding, cutting, and grinding. So obviously if it was if I was cutting with it and it was a regular welding helmet, I wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. So it just has a selector switch on it, lets you pick what you're doing, so it automatically darkens to the appropriate level. As in some of the first videos, I've got just a straight edge setup on there. It'll help me run the line straight. I'm going to again come in from the outside, the scrap area, so I don't end up blowing out around the plunge cut. So I'll come in from the side and then make the cut across it. Okay, so we've got two trapezoidal shapes here that you can see there, and where the way those work out is, and I'll go grab the drawing and I'll touch on it, because those need to change the coupler height. So those are going to go on the tongue this way. So I'll go grab that drawing, and it'll make a little bit more sense to you. And then I'll probably pause it there. They'll clean all these ends up with the grinder. You don't need to be bored to death watching that. And then I'll show you the actual layout. So let me go grab the drawing. Bring you guys over so you can see it a little better. Traditionally on a trailer, the top of the ball, the coupler, 19 inches is kind of an industry standard to try to hit that target. A lot of trailers are designed around that, so that way it fits a lot of different pickups as universally as possible, but you can't always get that exactly, which is why they make drop hitches and all kinds of other devices. So because this is a drop axle trailer, as you can see here, I'm going to switch front view. So let me grab a pointer. So because it's a drop axle trailer, this depicts the main frame here, this beam. So if I were to put the coupler directly on that, the ball height would be extremely low, probably about 5 inches low to be exact. So what you do to bring that up is I just take a piece of the leftover 6-inch channel, this piece here, which are those two pieces, the trapezoidal pieces we just cut out, and I overlap that onto the 5-inch. That'll all be welded in, and so that gains me 6 inches back, and that results in, again, until we get the trailer sitting on the ground and the suspension compressed a little, this is all as if there was no spring compression. So as it sits, that would put the top of the ball at 18 3/4 inches, which is as close to 19 as I'm going to get. Some people might say, well, why didn't you just extend the tongue off of the end of the deck straight out? Which you could do. That would have given me the height you need. But then you have your full frame is all on one plane, and then that puts you at probably 25 or 26 feet. So you get a lot of springiness in that. So by actually having the tongue down below the main frames up here, the tongue will go back almost to the axles. That really reinforces that front section of the trailer to where there's virtually no spring, and then it's better to just offset it to get the coupler back at the height you want. So anyway, that's the purpose of those trapezoids we just cut. Let me switch you back here. I should probably touch on what some of you may have noticed in the first 2 episodes and what some of my coworkers certainly busted me on, which is I was wearing Crocs. Is that the safest shoe to be working in? Probably not. In fact, one of my coworkers jabbed me about getting way more views if I had dropped something and cut off a toe. He was probably right. However, it's my shop, so the guys at work can kick rocks. Just kidding. As you can see, today I have on safety-toed work shoes. So hopefully that won't be an issue moving forward. So enough of the PSA. Let's get back to the tongue layout. So I got the pieces cut, the trapezoidal pieces cut for the tongue, and one thing that I have to do to make them fit well is this tongue itself, the stamped steel tongue. This corner, I'll see if I can hold it up to where you'll be able to see it. This corner itself right here, it's not a nice sharp 90-degree bent corner, and the channel iron does have a nice 90-degree corner. So that wouldn't fit very well. You could clamp one side tight, but that would hold the bottom off, or if you clamped this side tight, that would hold this off. So one thing you have to do is grind a nice radius on there. It doesn't really weaken it much at all because of the web. I'll give you an in view. Because of the web being thicker right here, even by the time I grind a radius on there, there's still lots of meat left. So that lets that piece fit in there much better. So I've already clamped one in place. I'm going to clamp the other one in here, and then I'll let you get a look at it, and then we'll tack weld that in place, and then I'll talk about the next steps that we're going to do in regard to attaching that to the bigger, longer pieces of the tongue. Just taking a basic measurement here to make sure that the amount sticking out on each of these sub-tongues, for lack of a better term, all right, that gets both of those in place. I'll probably just tack them there. Bring you over here so you can kind of see how they fit in there. They get tack welded a little bit there, but primarily they'll be tack welded on the outside. For some reason, if the coupler ever wore out, it'll be much easier to grind the welds loose on the outside to replace it than it would be on the inside. So I think I'll do that right now, and then I'll get those tacked in place and then bring you back. Okay, so I've got the tongue tacked, though there's only just a couple tacks because it figures. I happened to run out of CO2 while I was making those tacks. So, but with the clamps out of the way, this gives you an idea of how that kind of sub-tongue finished out. And again, it's just tacked. And so I've got, as you can see in the background here, I've got the main tongue laid out. This is just a little bit of not trial and error, but it's kind of balancing of all the pieces to get them to fit together and line up and clamp them. The distance I want the ball or the center of the coupler to be off the front of the trailer, so that a pickup can basically come around, almost jackknife, and the tongue or the bumper of the pickup will clear this corner and tuck right in here, so it lets you turn it the tightest that possibly you'd be able to. So that dimension is, off the face, is about 39 inches. So I'm just got it sitting on my chair here to get me really close. I also put a center line on the front main cross member and a center line back on one of the other cross members. That basically lets me project out here a center line. And again, this is once I kind of get it clamped, then I can start doing some more finite measuring. So that puts the ball coupler pretty much dead center. So then I'm just kind of eyeballing down, lining up or making the angle similar on the sub tongue as compared to the long tongue, and I got it pretty close. As far as the amount of overlap I'm going to have, there'll be 9 inches of this, the 6-inch channel that overlaps the 5-inch channel. It's just kind of it's way more than would be needed, but it looks the best. So I'm really close there, so I'm going to see if I can prop it up enough. I might have to get a couple roller stands. We'll see if I can prop it up here or hold it up enough to get at least a couple vice grips on, and then we'll go from there. So this one lined up really well. This one, I gotta kick that back edge out a little bit. Alright, so that gets it really close. I'll get the chair out of the way here for you. So now that those are kind of clamped on there, I'll bring you down here. So I marked out the 9 inches here. It's maybe 1/16 of an inch strong on each side. So that way that's on there. This is sticking out a little bit. I'll get that lined up, and then that'll let me just shift it fore and aft to get my exact 39 inches. But I think I'm pretty close. We're at about 38 1/4, 38. So I can just pull it forward a little bit. But that gives you a feel for, remember the trailer's upside down. So that will actually raise the ball coupler up in relation to the I was going to actually do some tacking, get some of this tacked in place, but given I'm out of CO2, that prevents that. So overall, that gives you a look of how the tongue works out. This is not excess. This amount of overhang is not excess. There'll be a miter cut out of this top and the bottom flange to match what the angle would be. And then I will fold, these will fold in and line up right on top of it, back near where the springs will be. And that basically reinforces this whole section and brings springy it all. So There's kind of an angle from the side, and you can kind of see how, at least in my opinion, by doing 45s, that gives it a much nicer, kind of a nicer look, versus if these were just square cut up here and square cut down there, it wouldn't look quite as nice. So I guess that's it for now until I run into town and get some CO2 tomorrow, and then I'll bring you back and we'll see. I'm not sure how much time's on this total video. We'll see, either you might see a little bit more in this one. If not, we'll pick you back up in episode 5. Thanks.